of you, to Gurudev, to Prabhupada, to Krishna. Thank you. There we go. Yes, we are on Canto 1, Chapter 14, verse number 42. Let's start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dhiraye Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhavati Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Kachitvam Nagamo Gamyam Vasatkritam Striyam Parajito Vatha Bhavan Notamay Nasamay Pathi. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, as well as purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have you contacted a woman of impeachable character? Or have you not properly treated a deserving woman? Or have you been defeated on the way by someone who is inferior or equal to you? Purport. It appears from this verse that during the time of the Pandavas, free contact between man and woman was allowed in certain conditions only. The higher caste men, namely the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, could accept a woman of the Vaishya or the Shudra community. But a man from the lower caste could not contact a woman of the higher caste. Even a Kshatriya could not contact a woman of the Brahmana caste. The wife of a Brahmana is considered one of the 7 mothers, namely one's own mother, the wife of the spiritual master or teacher, the wife of a Brahmana, the wife of a king, that means the queen, the cow, the nurse, and the earth. Such contact between man and woman was known as Uttama and Adhama. Contact of a Brahmana with a Kshatriya woman is Uttama. But the contact of a Kshatriya with a Brahmana woman is Adhama and therefore condemned. A woman approaching a man for contact should never be refused. But at the same time, the discretion as above mentioned may also be considered. Bhima was approached by Hidimbi from a community lower than the Shudras, and Yayati refused to marry the daughter of Shukracharya because of Shukracharya's being a Brahmana. Vyasadeva, a Brahmana, was called to beget Pandu and Dhritarashtra. Satyavati belonged to a family of fishermen, but Parashar, a great Brahmana, begot in her Vyasadeva. So, there are so many examples of contacts with women. But in all cases, the contacts were not abominable, nor were the results of such contacts bad. Contact between man and woman is natural. That also must be carried out under regulative principles, so that social consecration may not be disturbed or unwanted worthless population be increased for the unrest of the world. It is abominable for a Kshatriya to be defeated by one who is inferior in strength or equal in strength. If one is defeated at all, he should be defeated by some superior power. Arjuna was defeated by Bhishma Dev, and Lord Krishna saved him from the danger. This was not an insult for Arjuna, because Bhishma Dev was far superior to Arjuna in all ways, namely age, respect, and strength. But Karna was equal to Arjuna, and therefore Arjuna was in crisis when fighting with Karna. It was felt by Arjuna, and therefore Karna was killed even by crooked means. Such are the engagements of the Kshatriyas. And Maharaj Yudhishthir inquired from his brother whether anything undesirable happened on the way home from Dwarka. Okay, so Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते चंद्रमौली स्वामी निति नामिने नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्याधीशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So a very brilliant explanation is being given about how to produce worthy sons and daughters from the union of man and wife. In the olden days, you see, people were very concerned about every act they performed. They were very responsible and they had far-sightedness. That means they were able to see the consequences of their actions and act accordingly. So they could avoid things that were adharmic or going to cause, problems in the future for themselves and for society. They were so responsible. Or they could take on some activity which would become auspicious, beneficial, pleasing, and good for the society, for the people, for themselves, so on. So there was, because dharmic way of life was the way of life. The Vedic culture was the way of life. At all levels, people thought carefully before attempting something. So here it is clearly said that because the Brahmanas are the highest in the social order, in the spiritual order, they would only marry queens. Sometimes they could marry a woman of a lower caste. They would contact a woman of a lower caste, but that was allowed. For example, Parashar Muni, he fell in love with Satyavati. She was the daughter of a fisherman. But she was so beautiful. She was just dazzling. And she was rowing the boat, taking him across the river. She was a fisherman's daughter. And in the boat itself, he wanted to have union with her because she was so beautiful. And then Satyavati said, but I'm not married. I'm just a young girl. I'm, my father's daughter, and I cannot. So Parashar Muni reassured her, I'm a mystic power sage. I will keep your virginity intact. And then she said, then whatever child is born of our union, she said, must be as great as you in strength, in learning, in wisdom, in piety, because she knew that anything could happen because she's a fisherwoman. So she was very intelligent. She said, the child that is born of our union should be as great as you. So Parashar Muni agreed. And that's how Dvaipayana Vyasadeva was born. He was a great sage, very, very powerful sage. As we know, he went on to write the Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavatam, everything. So she got what she wanted. But she was clever enough to ask for that. So that is one example of a contact of a Brahmana with a lower caste woman. But that was permissible. Even Kshatriyas could marry below. That means they could marry Vaishya, Shudra. Vaishya could marry Vaishya and Shudra. But you could not go the other way around. A Vaishya or a Shudra could not marry a woman of a higher caste. That means the man had to always be the higher caste and the woman could be of a lower caste because the woman follows the Varna and ashram of the man. So things were very strict in those days, simply because they did not want to create unwanted population, unwanted progeny. Unwanted progeny means progeny that is abominable, because nobody wants that child, and it is born out of a union that is not pleasing to the gods, pleasing to the Lord, because it's performed with simply maybe just sense gratification in mind, or using someone's body to satisfy one's own pleasure, or even out of force, like that. So even Arjuna is very perturbed. If we go to Bhagavad Gita, he is actually giving all reasons. If you remember the first chapter, he's giving all reasons why he should not fight. Let's go to Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, verse number 40, I believe, to 43. In those verses, excuse me, Arjuna is protesting. If I kill all these men, the poor young women will be left widowed. And then, being young, they will make alliances with any men, and then all kinds of unwanted progeny will be born. Let's go to the 40. Go to 40. Yeah, 140. And then we'll look at, just go to the translations, please, first. So there are 3 or 4 verses in which Prabhupada repeatedly says, unwanted progeny, unwanted progeny. So I want us to take a good look at that, because this is so important, even for our Krishna consciousness movement. When irreligion is prominent in the family of Krishna, the women of the family become polluted. And from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down, because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. See how many reasons and what are the repercussions that will follow is what Arjuna is presenting. And it sounds very reasonable, isn't it? Oh my goodness, you want me to kill all these soldiers? All the women will become widowed, and then they will make alliances with whoever is around. And then from that will come all kinds of unwanted children. And those children, because they are born without samskaras, without any proper rituals, auspiciousness, without sacred marriage, maybe sometimes, what kind of progeny will come? Because remember, the consciousness at the time of conception plays a huge role in the quality of that particular child. What kind of soul is attracted into that union, into that family, depends on the consciousness, piety, of course, karma of the 2 people involved in the act of procreation. So that is why it is said, at least in our Hare Krishna movement, we should try to have a very high level of consciousness, so that we do not, as Srila Prabhupada says in Gita, beget children like cats and dogs. Says, let us have Krishna conscious children. Then we can have hundreds of children, said Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. So that we will be attracting noble, saintly, God-conscious souls to come into our movement and to propagate Krishna consciousness thereafter. And also, Lord Shiva, who is the Lord of all the Pishachas and hobgoblins and ghosts and, all the lower beings, he sends souls into those unions which are unholy or not taking place at the proper time, or without proper rituals, sacrifices, without proper preparation, without a desire to please the Supreme Lord, because all these souls need to take birth. So he just sends them into such unions. And that is why today we are having so many demons getting born into the world. That is one of the reasons, because of sinful, illicit sexual activity. Yeah, so the women become polluted when they have no protection. See, women are very vulnerable. The woman's heart is very, very soft, and she's always looking for affection, for attention, for protection, for love, for security. And when she is raised in a family where these are absent, especially the father is absent, which is happening all too often these days. So many women are single mothers. Then what happens as the girl grows up? The missing masculine energy in her life, she seeks in the form of boyfriends or any man. And the man may be a complete rascal, but just because he's paying a little attention to her, she falls head over heels in love with him. And it doesn't matter how low, despicable character he is, whether he has any responsibility or whether he has any morals or character, it doesn't matter. Simply by paying a little attention to her, because she's starving for that male figure in her life, just by paying a little attention to her, he captures her heart and then finish. She is all his. And that's how unwanted population is produced. Because the men have not much interest. They're just trying to, have a good time into let's get together today evening and dance and drink and have fun. And then the fun results in great problems for the girl, usually. So that's why marriage protects a girl especially. It protects the boy also, but it definitely protects women from being used, abused, neglected, and abandoned, which is happening so often these days. So often. So men have actually a very great responsibility. They have to take the leadership role and be men of character, of responsibility, be noble, and take care of the women in their lives, whether it's the mother, sister, daughter, wife, whoever it may be. Not just women, children, elderly, parents, anybody who is, needy of help. These are all the things one is required to do. Yeah, so wife of a Brahmana is considered one of the 7 mothers. So 7 mothers are named over here, and she is to be revered as good as one's own mother. So this is what, when Arjuna, he's asked by King Virat to accept the hand of his daughter Uttara in marriage. He says, I've been her teacher. She's like a daughter to me. I cannot marry her, but I'm happy to offer my son Abhimanyu in marriage to her. So that's how Abhimanyu marries Uttara. And then they have Parikshit Maharaj. So propriety was always a concern, that what is the right thing to do. People did not just mate like cats and dogs. They thought very carefully about the consequences of the union, because they knew that a poor quality, soul is of course by nature pure, but souls are waiting to take birth also. But attracting a person of poor quality will result in great harm and destruction. For example, when Aditi persuaded Kashyap to have relations with her, he told her, this is the wrong time, this is not a good time. Lord Shiva is going around planting all kinds of souls into the wombs of those who are engaging in sex at the wrong time. But she was so desperate, she couldn't care less. And who was born? Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Of course, this is also Lord's arrangement. Jay and Vijay would take birth. So that's how that arrangement was made. But this is an example of how one must be very, very careful, especially in our Krishna consciousness movement. They actually, if one actually wants to have a good soul, the husband and wife consult a good astrologer. And after looking at the nakshatras, the stars of both the husband and wife, and seeing what are the most auspicious, fertile periods astrologically, the astrologer will recommend certain days for conception to take place. And then the young couple, of course, the very first thing, is to seek the permission and blessings of Guru. That Guru Maharaj, we would now like to have a child. Our union is stable. We get along well. We have understood how to cooperate to please the Supreme Lord. We would now like to have a child. Please, may we have your permission. Then only after the spiritual master's blessings, then they can go forward to beget a child. And that time, they also seek the blessings of others in the community. And it was not, what to say, it was not anything shameful, because they were doing something sacred, holy, and auspicious. People knew that the union may result in a child, and it's not for sense gratification alone. It is meant for begetting good progeny. So they would seek the blessings of elders before begetting a child. So contact of a Brahmana with a Kshatriya woman is Uttama, but a contact of Kshatriya man with a Brahmana woman is Adama, and therefore condemned. A woman approaching a man for contact should never be refused. But at the same time, discretion as above mentioned may also be considered. For example, Yayati refused to marry the daughter of Shukracharya because Yayati was a Kshatriya and she was daughter of a Brahmana. But later on, he did agree. That comes later on. But at first, he was saying that he should not marry because it would be adharma. Now, Bhima, this is very interesting. Hidimbi is a Rakshashi. What had happened was the whole family had fled from the Lakshagriha, that house of lack, in which purportedly they were all supposed to be burnt to death by the machinations of Duryodhana and his evil brothers. But the house of lack, of course, burnt to the ground. But because of Vidur's warning them, they had made a tunnel going deep into a forest. So that whole thing was so traumatic and so disturbing for Kunti that, yes, they entered into a very dense forest, but they were so exhausted, they all fell asleep. And Bhima was left in charge of guarding them. Now, in that forest was Hidimba, a very evil Rakshas, and his sister Hidimbi. And they can smell human blood. So immediately, Hidimba, he understood that there is some humans around. So he asked his sister Hidimbi, go and find out who is there and what kind of meal we will get. So quietly, Hidimbi came to spy on them, and then she saw this powerful, handsome, valiant, tall, very, very strong Bhim. And she fell in love with him. And so she transformed herself into a very beautiful maiden. And she came and told him, I want to marry you. I want to be with you. And Bhima at first was, what is this? Then she actually said who she was. And she said, my brother is actually planning to come and kill all of you and eat you up. So he said, is that so? And then the rest of the family, the brothers and Kunti were still sleeping. He went and challenged Hidimba to a fight, and a great fight ensued. And the noise and all the, fighting and shouting woke up all the brothers and Mother Kunti, and they were just standing and watching the duel. And of course, Bhima tore that demon to pieces, tore his arms, legs, everything, dashed him to the ground, and that was the end of Hidimba. Now, Hidimbi, she was left alone. So she said to Bhima, now you must marry me because I have no male protector. Bhima at first didn't want to marry this Rakshashi woman. So then Hidimbi, she actually went to Yudhishthir Maharaj and she quoted Dharma saying, how can he refuse to marry me? First, he has killed my brother who was my only shelter, and now I am approaching him and he is refusing to marry. So Yudhishthir Maharaj agreed with her. And he told Bhim, no, you should marry her. This is the right thing to do and give her protection. Then they all consulted, and Kunti Devi, who is the mother, she was also consulted. And she said, we are, on the run. These people have to hide in hiding. We are escaping from being attacked and killed and so on. So I will let Bhim be with you for a period of 1 year until you have a child. Once he gives you a child, you should allow him to come back and be with us because we have to keep going. And, they had to win back the kingdom. And so Hidimbi agreed. So Bhim was with her, and that's how Ghatotkacha, an extremely powerful half man, half Rakshasa son of Bhim, was born, who was actually instrumental in winning the fight against the Kauravas in the battle of Kurukshetra. Ghatotkacha was extremely powerful. And of course, being a Rakshasa, he could transform his form at will. And he told his father Bhim, whenever you need me, all you have to do is remember me and I will come. So Ghatotkacha is a very interesting personality. What happened was Duryodhan wanted to marry the daughter of Balaram. And Balaram also wanted to give his daughter. Her name was Shashi Rekha, or Vatsala also she was called. So Shashi Rekha secretly wanted to marry Abhimanyu. She was in love with Abhimanyu. So knowing this, the marriage had been arranged and everything. And Ghatotkacha wanted to help his cousin Abhimanyu. So he agreed to take the place of Shashi Rekha, while Shashi Rekha escaped and went to be with Abhimanyu and married him secretly. So what he did, he took the form of Shashi Rekha. There's a very interesting Telugu movie showing this whole scene. And to everybody else, he looked like this beautiful Shashi Rekha. But by his mystic powers, he showed his Rakshas nature to Lakshmana. That was the name of the boy. And Lakshmana is terrified in the marriage ceremony. Every time he looks at his bride, Ghatotkacha shows that form. And then he turns around and then back again to the beautiful girl form. Again he turns around, again this Rakshas. So this fellow is terrified, but he doesn't know what to do. And then later on that night, Ghatotkacha breaks his arm. He says, I don't want this woman. I don't want this marriage. There's something wrong. There's something fishy. And he says, get lost. I'm throwing her out. And of course, Ghatotkacha escapes from there. And Shashi Rekha, the real Shashi Rekha, is safely married to Abhimanyu. Of course, that's just a different little side note. But this is how Ghatotkacha also helped Abhimanyu. Ghatotkacha actually took that weapon which was meant for Arjun. You know, there was a weapon, I forget the details. I have to read that up. Sorry about that. I should read that up next time. I'll tell you about it. But Ghatotkacha took that. He was also invincible in battle, but this is the only weapon. And Ghatotkacha took that on as a sacrifice to save the others. So, yeah, and that's how Hidimbi marries Bhim. Shukracharya was a very powerful priest of the Asuras, and he had this beautiful daughter called Devayani. Actually, Devayani was in love with a demigod called Kacha. Kacha had come down from the celestial world to become a disciple of Shukracharya, a pupil, and learn the art of Mritya Sanjivani, how to revive people from the dead. And after 1 year of training, he wanted to go back to the heavenly planets. And Kacha, Devyani said, I'm madly in love with you. How you can go? You have to marry me. So Kacha said, sorry, I cannot do that. You are like a mother to me because you're the daughter of my teacher. I cannot marry you. So she cursed him. And then in turn, he cursed her also. So all these things go on. Anyway, so she was left bereft. And then when Yayati came along, she proposed to Yayati. At first, Yayati said no. But then after learning how powerful Shukracharya was, and Shukracharya himself coming and offering his daughter's hand, he agreed. He also married Sharmishta, who is the daughter of the king. That's another story. Now, let's come to Vyasadeva. What happened was, Satyavati, because she mated with Parashar, he also gave her a boon. She smelled like a fisherwoman, but she was very, very beautiful. So she also asked for a boon that her body fragrance changes into something very, very fragrant. So he gave her that musk fragrance. And that fragrance was so powerful that King Shantanu, when he was in the forest hunting, he smelled that fragrance and came to the cottage, to the hermitage. And then he saw this beautiful girl, Satyavati, and he fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. Now the fisherman, being a very clever man, he said, I will give my daughter in marriage to you only if you promise that her children will sit on the throne. Now, Shantanu already had a son, Bhishma, and Bhishma was the heir to the throne. Remember, he was the only son left by Mother Ganga. 8 Vasus were born and he was left. So the throne was already his. So Shantanu came back from the forest to the palace, but he was so dejected because he had fallen in love with this girl and he couldn't have her. So Bhima, seeing his father's distress, he asked him, "What is wrong? What is wrong?" And Shantanu wouldn't tell him because it was too embarrassing and he didn't want to tell his son what was the. But Bhishma, being very intelligent, found out where did the king go today in the forest, and he followed the trail and he came upon this hermitage and cottage. And on further inquiries, he came to know his father had fallen in love with this girl. So he asked the fisherman, "Please give your daughter in marriage to my father." So the fisherman said the same thing. He said, "Only if you promise that my daughter's sons will be on the throne." So Bhishma said, "So be it." But the man was not satisfied. He said, "You may say yes, but what about the sons born to you? They may fight with my daughter's sons." So then Bhishma takes that terrible vow. "I promise, I take a vow that I will never marry and I will be celibate all my life." Now, for a Kshatriya, to make that promise is indeed a terrible vow. So that's why he got the name Bhishma. His name was Devavrata. So he got the name Bhishma, which means one who has taken a terrible vow. So then he brings the girl back and he convinces his father, "Don't worry, I have already taken the vow. Now there's no going back. I have done this. So you cannot make me change my mind. You marry her." So Shantanu accepts the girl in marriage, Satyavati, and they have 2 children, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, who are the grandparents of these Kauravas and Pandavas. Both Chitrangada and Vichitravirya die childless, without children, though they are married to Ambika and Ambalika. That is also another interesting story. Bhishma fights and wins these 3 girls, but refuses to marry them. Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. But then he says, "All right, you cannot marry me, but you can marry my 2 brothers, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya." So Ambika and Ambalika are married to those 2 brothers. And Amba says to Bhishma, "Now you should marry me." And Bhishma says, "Nothing doing. I cannot marry you." So he sends her back to the king from whom he fought. I forget his name. That king says, "How can I take you back? You have been taken away in fair fight by this Kshatriya. I will not." So she goes back again to Bhishma and like this back and forth. And Bhishma refuses. So she gets very insulted. She gets very insulted and she says, "I will come back and be the cause of your destruction." So she takes a terrible vow and she is born as Shikhandi. She takes birth again as a man this time. But actually she is that same woman, Amba. That's another story. Anyway, so Chitrangada and Vichitravirya died childless. Now in those days, it was, the rule that if a man dies childless, his widow can mate with the brother. Now it is no longer so, but in those days it was allowed. So Vyasadev, who is the sage we were talking about, was begotten by Satyavati with Parashar. He had told his mother, "Whenever you need me, you have to call me, I will come." So now Satyavati thinks, what will happen to the kingdom? There are no children, there are no progeny. So she calls her son. And Vyasadev is a sage. He's got all matted hair and he has a fierce, long beard and looks very, unkempt, just being in the forest and all that. So she tells him, "You have to mate with Ambalika and Ambika so that we can beget children." So Ambika, when she sees this fierce sage coming to her, she closes her eye tightly shut during the time of conception. And that is how Dhritarashtra is born blind. Ambalika also, seeing such a fierce looking man come to her, she becomes very pale And so that's why they say Pandu was born like albino with no color. And then Vyasadeva is told to beget one more child. And this time the two queens don't want to have anything to do with him. And so Ambalika sends her maid to beget a child with Vyasadeva. And that child is Vidur. Very, very great personality. So though he is Dasi Putra, that means son of the maid, because he is born from the princely order, he's given all due respects and everything, just like the other princes. But he cannot hold the post of a king. That is the only difference. So this is how the unions would take place in those days. And they were very careful under regulative principles so that progeny will be good. Now let's look at the second part. It is abominable for a Kshatriya to be defeated by one who is inferior in strength or equal in strength. Either one defeats the other person or is killed. That's how it used to be. If one is defeated, it's a great shame and dishonor, because you're paraded through the streets on a donkey and people make fun of you, because the victor then takes the person and makes a complete humiliating spectacle of the defeated one. So it's considered a great dishonor to be defeated like that. And so here it is said that Arjun was defeated by Bhishma Dev, but this is no dishonor because Bhishma Dev was extremely powerful. And of course, Lord Krishna saved him. But Kanda was equal to Arjun. And so Arjun was in a big, when fighting with Karna. And it was felt by Arjun. Therefore, Karna was killed by crooked means. Actually, Karna was cursed by Parshuram, that when he needs it the most, he will forget all the means to save himself at the time of death in battle. That was one. And also, Karna indulged in very wicked means and deceitful means of killing Abhimanyu. He killed him from behind, which was just not allowed in warfare. So Krishna reminded Arjun, this is how your son was killed, and that incited Arjun's fury, and then he killed Karna. When Karna got down from the chariot, his wheel got stuck in the mud. So he said, remember the rules of warfare? We cannot fight an unarmed combatant. So he got down and he was trying to save his chariot by pulling it out from the mud. And that's when Krishna said, shoot. And later on, Karna asked, as he is dying, how you could do like that. So then the explanation comes that when you have cheated, when you have done so many things wrong, you cannot expect right things to happen. So Prabhupada also says, with cheats, sometimes we have to learn to cheat, because otherwise we will get cheated again and again. So we will stop over there. Hope it wasn't boring for you. My humble obeisances again. But we can open up for comments, questions, criticisms, corrections, whatever you like.
Thank you, Mataji, for the class. That movie about Gatotkacha's pastime is a favorite for every Telugu person. So all-time favorite.
Yeah, very, very, very wonderful. I still remember my mother would sing songs from that.
Yeah. I don't remember how many times I sang.
Because with their mystic powers, they can make all sweet meats and so many things appear. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just was telling how many times we watched that movie, we don't even remember. Like,
yeah, it's a great favorite. Yeah, Maya Bazaar.
Yeah, Maya Bazaar.
See, in those days, the movies were made with so much, a message of God consciousness. It was not just entertainment, it was spiritual information along with entertainment. And so very beautiful movies would be made. Bharat Milap, Sati, Sati Savitri, Raja Harishchandra, Ramachandra, like this, so many beautiful movies. Then, of course, all the deterioration began, and now, though, it is like insulting to women the way they portray girls half naked and dancing crazily and all those things.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So, devotees, any questions or comments? You can go ahead and you can please turn on your cameras if possible. So, Mataji, I was thinking like when we are talking about marriage and everything, so how to educate our youth, Mataji? Can you please share those points also about the importance of marriage? And because nowadays kids are very, they don't want to take any responsibility, or they are like always want to be free. If you say anything like this, or they get into tension or they feel very pressure. So it's a heavy topic for them.
Yeah. See, this is the influence of Kali Yuga, the age we are in. The age we are in, where everything, free sex, free, everything free. It's all around them in school, everywhere. Oh, you have a boyfriend. Oh, you have a girlfriend. Oh, wow. See, this is the talk that goes on. So what can they do except get affected? That is why we need Krishna conscious farm communities. Again, my favorite soapbox. Because the atmosphere is so pervasively interested in sexualizing even young kids as young as 8 years, 10 years, 5 years. I've heard Westerners telling about very proudly about that 5-year-old child who goes to kindergarten. Oh, he likes this girl, so she's his girlfriend. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They're talking about girlfriend and boyfriend at age 5 of their child. So much sexualization. Hmm? And so much sense gratificatory perception is there that nobody thinks of God. Where's God in the picture? There's no God. This is Kali Yuga. So we have to keep our children very protected and sheltered and expose them as much as possible to Krishna conscious culture, Krishna conscious atmosphere, take them to Sunday feast programs, encourage them to think of consequences of their actions, maybe show what is happening to people around who are, doing things that are sinful. And then, of course, there are always consequences, and warn them that, look, you're an old enough person to understand. That's why I'm explaining to you, because you will be tempted. Just like we have to warn them about drugs, alcohol, drinks, all these things. We have to also warn them about the association they are having, to choose their association with great care. And then it's our responsibility to provide them with Krishna conscious peers and Krishna conscious association. Because if you're living surrounded by all people who are now, what can they do? They have to, go to school, they have to mix with, they have to have friends. Then what is the result is all these kind of friends, because that's all they're hearing. Remember, this thing is breaking the 4 regulative principles all the time. Whether it's iPad, iPhone, TV, internet, all the time, the messages coming are just sex, 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 violence, 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 drink, drink, drugs, drugs. That's it. Sense gratification, and that's all there is. So we are living in very, very difficult times. Protecting our kids is like impossible in the present society we live in, next to impossible. And that is why we need farm communities. What to do? That's the sad truth.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah, that's why as much as possible we are engaging them in Krishna conscious activities and taking them to programs. Yeah.
Yes, very important. Guard them like they are, Kohinoor, like ox you have to watch.
Yes.
And make sure that they don't fall into bad association.
Mm.
You're nice kids, you don't have to worry.
I'm just talking in general, but the thing is, yeah, nowadays even youth about 25, girls are not that much inclined to get married soon. They want to wait some more time, choose correct boy. So like that, they are simply dragging out a lot of time, and so yeah, it's like sometimes scary, Mataji.
Yeah, because they're scared. They're scared about, being left, being abandoned, being used and thrown aside. All these things are also going on. Remember, in a relationship, a young girl is very vulnerable. Generally speaking, boys do get away with a lot, but the girl is left with a baby. and a bad name too. So unfortunately, it's a sad truth in our culture that even I'm seeing it even here. An abusive young man is married twice, thrice. And I don't know how the parents give their daughter in marriage again and again to men who have proved to be abusive to their wives. But it's happening here in Mayapur. We have to educate everyone, we have to train everyone. And especially because men are the leaders of society at so many levels, men need a lot of training in being responsible, in following the dharmic lifestyle, in not polluting women, in not abusing women, in taking care of all sections of society. Where do men have the training? Where do young boys hear what is their role in society? They don't hear these things. Similarly, girls don't hear that they make the home. A woman's role is to be nurturing, loving, caring, taking care of the children, taking care of the elderly, dependent parents. So many things are there that a woman only can do because of her nature given by God. You see, these things are not told, not informed, not trained, nothing. So how we are going to have good families, good children when there's no training? Our society is just, I mean, it concerns me so much, what's going on in the world today. But because of Krishna consciousness, there's hope.
Yes, Mataji. Somehow or other, they hear these topics, and at least they'll get a chance to think about it and implement in their lives whenever
Right.
it's needed. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you, Mataji. Dear devotees, any questions or comments? Yeah, I don't see any questions or comments, Mataji. Revati Mataji, you have anything to share?
Hi Krishna, thank you, Mataji. Hi Krishna, Mataji, Sridevi Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for this very nice class. So much very important, valuable information is there in this puppet. I don't have any specific questions, but I was just looking at the puppet again, and you gave so many beautiful examples, practical examples, and you made us understand this puppet very nicely. Like here, like the man from the lower caste could not contact a woman of a higher caste. But nowadays in the societies, we are not really following, and most of the divorces happen because woman is more qualified than man, and we see the disturbances in the family life. As Srimati Mataji said, at least this puppet will help us, keeping this, help us, our kids train so that, they don't fall into this, mess. So I just wanted.
Yeah, we must be careful to train our children to see things that are red flags, to see things that could cause potential problems for them, and to be kind and compassionate even to those who are having issues. See, because the family is so disturbed, the children coming from broken homes have a lot of issues. But that doesn't mean they should be shunned or, treated like outcasts. While we can be careful in our dealings with them, we can also help them to heal. We can help them to understand that they don't have to carry on that same tradition, because what happens, a girl coming from a single parent, single mother home, that's all she knows. So she attracts similar irresponsible men, and then she goes through the same thing. She gets pregnant, she has a child, and she does the same thing her mother did, struggle alone. But that need not be the case. If somehow by good fortune she gets in contact with a child from a good family, that child can see what she has gone through, befriend her, bring her into the home for festival occasion, so that she knows what it is like to be in a normal family. She sees healthy interactions between husband and wife, and she learns what it is to be in a good relationship. In fact, in America, they have a program called Big Brothers and Big Sisters, where they match up children from disadvantaged families with children who are able to be the big brother and big sister to these young children who need so desperately a decent home. They don't even know what a good relationship looks like.
Mataji. But also, like here in this purport, right, higher caste and the lower caste. But because because we are in Krishna conscious, the caste is based on your consciousness, right? So,
well, it's not exactly like that. So some of us are Brahminical, some of us are Kshatriya, some of us are mixed. Basically, in Kali Yuga, Kalau Shudra Sambhavaha, most of us are all, at a very low level until we come to Krishna consciousness. What we know, we don't know so much. But still, we can train our children to look for children coming from families which are intact and which are raising their children nicely. Now, I'm not saying a single parent cannot do it. They can. A single parent also can be very stable, can be very loving, can be very caring, can raise their children nicely. I'm not saying that it's not possible. But if they themselves have been disturbed, they themselves are seriously emotionally challenged, chances are their children will also be emotionally challenged.
yes, Mataji. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. It's a very broader topic. Need to really understand it in a very broader perspective. Yes, yeah. Thank you. I have another question, but I can ask Raj Prabhu. Then I can. It's a different topic.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead, Raj Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Sridevi Mataji, thank you for that interesting, inspiring class. It was very inspiring because I felt like I wanted to go and explore lots of different topics that you touched on, and like dive deeper into Mahabharata and all the backstories of the characters. I have a desire to do that now. But I was thinking about when it was interesting how you were talking about at the time of the conception of Pandu and Dhritarashtra and Vidura. And that just demonstrates how the consciousness of both parents at the time of conception has such a massive, massive impact on the child that is born. Both physically we see, both mentally we see, and also spiritually. So, and you can see how that impacted those three characters in how they were in their lives. And you could just see, like, it's so, so important that both parents have perfect consciousness at that time. Otherwise, it's like it could go massively wrong, as we see.
Yeah, it's really remarkable because guess how Prahlad Maharaj was born to that Ashur Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was meditating and he was, really, really trying to meditate and on Brahma and say the mantras. But I think it was Narad Muni who comes because he knows what's going to happen in the form of a parrot. And he's sitting on the branch and he keeps saying, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. And every time, Hiranyakashipu gets up and tries to shoo the parrot goes on doing that. Finally, he's just so frustrated. He says, okay, no meditation for today. I'm going home. So he goes back to the palace. And of course, his beautiful wife is there. And then, of course, he wants to be with her. But at the time of conception, that mantra is going through his head. Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. And that's how Prahlad Maharaj is born. To a demon. Can you imagine? That, of course, is the Lord's arrangement. But yes, what you have said is so illustrative of how important. That is why we must impress on our children that you must choose well and you must be in good consciousness so that your progeny will be well. Because today, demoniac children are taking birth and they'll be saddled with, like, from where these children have come, they will think, we don't want that to happen to our kids, poor things. So at least we must warn them. Be careful. Chant your rounds. Prabhupada said a couple should chant 50 rounds before engaging in the act of sex in order to have good consciousness and to attract a soul of high caliber.
Thank you, Mataji.
It
Yesterday,
must take a lot of practice to be able to chant 50 rounds in the first place.
My guess is they will be spending 8-10 hours doing just that, because preparing for conception means you have to prepare by chanting so many rounds. And then if you do that, 50 rounds, my gosh, how many hours will that take? So it's not a small thing to engage in the act of conception. Is a big responsibility in the human form of life.
Yesterday, Nityananda Prabhu came to our Bhakti Riksha and he was talking that please give so much of love to your children and take care of them. He was especially mentioning that. Yes, Mataji.
That is very true. That is very true. But love also includes educating them.
Yeah.
Not frightening them, not chastising them for every little small, mistake, but lovingly. A loving parent wants to warn them of the pitfalls, that are coming. So be careful about these things. Be in good consciousness. Choose a stable, sensible, spiritual mate. So you have less difficulties. And if the mate is unstable or disturbed, well, get help, get therapy, get healing for them. And when they are well, maybe no problem. But first, at least reach emotional stability. Otherwise, how you can expect daily life will be just a roller coaster of ups and downs all the time because the person is going crazy, getting triggered, having emotional mood swings. The poor husband or wife is just running, trying to placate him or her, depending on what's going on. It's just a madhouse.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you so much. Raj Prabhu, you have any further comments?
No, that's very helpful, actually.
I thought Raj Prabhu is going to chastise me. I thought he's going to say, Mataji, it is always Miss Gloom and Doom, always painting a horrifying picture about everything in the world. Yes, Raj Prabhu?
Well, it's reality, isn't it? It's accepting the reality and then doing what you can in the circumstances. And if you're stuck on what to do, then there's help available. Like when my daughter was growing up, I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand Krishna consciousness, but because I was taking her regularly to Bhaktivedanta Manor, she was getting so much support, so much blessings, so much spiritual energy from devotees.
She's very lucky. Devotees. She's very, very lucky. How old is your daughter now?
Now she's 19.
Wow. So 19 years she has been in Bhaktivedanta Manor. Just imagine, she has soaked up everything.
Well, I don't know, but she's, yeah. Well, Guru Maharaj is very impressed with her when he comes to London.
Nice. She's your only child?
Yes.
Okay, very nice. You did a great job by bringing her to the manor, Raj Prabhu. That's the greatest gift you can give her, the gift of Krishna consciousness, to connect her.
I didn't know what I was doing, but somehow
did
it's
the right
Krishna's
thing.
arrangement.
You did the right thing. That's awesome.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Revati Mataji, you have a question you wanted to ask now?
Yes, Mataji, just Mataji, last paragraph you mentioned, I really like that. Like, give an example of how Karna, he killed his Arjuna's son, right? And you made a statement like, with the cheats, we have also need to cheat. So, in the material world, we see so much self-centeredness. Sometimes it's very difficult to handle that. Most of the time, we tolerate. But there is so much self. Eh, I don't know how to deal with those things. If you have any
Yeah,
suggestion.
generally speaking, devotee avoids all those kind of situations because we don't want to deal with this cheating people. We don't want to get involved with them. But sometimes we have no choice but to deal with these people. You're buying a house, for example, and the fellow is trying to cheat you. Instead of saying it is $135,000, he says $235,000. Then you have to say, oh, I don't have so much money. And you have to, even if you may have to tell lies like that. Say, no, 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 I cannot afford such a high price. I can only give you this much. I can. So we have to also sometimes play the game, as they say, when they are trying to cheat us, because we are living in this world. We have to survive. Devotee avoids as far as possible telling lies or trying to cheat or something. But in some situations, we may have to do that. In fact, Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada says, a businessman, sometimes we may have to say, oh, my dear sir, for you, I'm making no profit at all. In fact, I'm making loss by selling at this price and things like that. That's part of his trade. He has to do those things. So like that, Prabhupada also says that sometimes with cheats, we have to also cheat.
So it's not an offense if we try to make them realize.
Try to?
Let's say anywhere we see so much competition, so much enviousness, right? So in order to sometimes, when we deal with those things, we also get into the lower modes.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah.
That is so true. That's why we have to be extremely careful and we need mentoring to deal with all these issues. We really have to be so careful, not just with outsiders, even with devotees. Even with devotees, this is happening. I'll just give you an example. Yesterday, I was so aghast. I'm renting this place from a devotee, and suddenly he says, you have to pay me so much more. But he didn't say it like that. You know what he said? You haven't paid this fee for so many months. So now you have to pay it. I said, I've never agreed to this. We never agreed to this in the first place. So how suddenly, no, you have to pay it, you have to pay it. So then I went back into my text messages to him where I had, proposed whatever I proposed and he had accepted. So then I sent those messages. I said, do you see all these things we had agreed upon? Then he backed off. Yes. I didn't. I will pay for it. I will pay for it. But before that, for half an hour, I was feeling so shocked that suddenly he's making this demand on me. I was so disturbed. I wrote to my mentor actually. I said, suddenly he's coming up with this demand of so much money all of a sudden. What am I supposed to do? She said, go back to whatever agreement you all had and remind him of it. So when I did that, then he backed off. But now he's making another demand. He's saying, within 2 months, you have to quit because you're not willing to pay. And I'm like, in 5-10 days, I'm getting ready to travel. After that is Guru Maharaj's disciples meeting, after which I want to take a little Ayurvedic treatment. I want to do so many things. I plan to come back only in January. Once I go from here, I plan to come back in January. That was my travel plan. And this guy is saying, first week of January, I plan to come back. He said, first week of January, you ought to be out of the house. So I'm thinking to myself, Krishna, what am I supposed to learn and understand? You only have to help me. Of course, I wrote to him and said, please give me more time. You cannot just suddenly tell this at the last minute. Yes, I know we had agreed to a 2 months notice because I had reminded him this is a part of our agreement. I sent the whole thing. In that, the agreement was 2 months notice. But 2 months notice, if I was here in Mayapur, then I can utilize that 2 months to search. But 1.5 months I'm not even in Mayapur. And now suddenly he's telling me, I want you gone. Devotee, 25 years in the movement, head of one of the departments over here. Children born in Krishna consciousness. Wife is a devotee. But when it comes to money, this is how he's dealing with me. So I've spoken to my mentor. Today I just went and stood in front of the Lord at every altar. And I just prayed to them. I said, my dear Lord, you have brought me here. I don't know what to do. You have to show me the way out of this. But so much distress, isn't it? Causing so much anxiety just for money.
Yes, Mataji. That to a devotee means we feel very...
And he knows I'm, elderly lady. I'm all by myself. So easier to bully, easier to pressure, easier to make the person, helpless people, they cough up more money. What to do? Where will they go? How will they survive? So put the pressure on. This is the nature of people in Kali Yuga, even devotees. Because we are so conditioned to cheat, to lie, to steal, to abuse, to take advantage of. This is our conditioning. And if we don't chant our rounds, if we don't take the process seriously, how will the holy name clean us up? We'll continue the same habits and we'll just pretend we are devotees. We'll do the outside. Oh, I've got kantimala, I'm wearing dhoti kurta, I'm doing this, I'm putting money, I'm a devotee. But are you a real devotee? That's the question.
Yes, Mataji, very true. Yes, Guru Maharaj always stresses on consciousness, right? Krishna consciousness. Yeah.
Anyway, I've talked to a few people and I was thinking, golly, I have to again start the search, again start looking, again start asking people, where is a place, where is a place? From the time I've come here, it's like, where is a place? Yeah, thank you, Raj Prabhu. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mataji. We'll really pray for your search, apartment search, and thank you so much for all your service.
Please pray for me to not lose it and continue my services no matter what's going on.
We all need your mercy. Thank you.
We all need each other's mercy and blessings. We can't do it alone, We can't. We all need each other's help, isn't it?
Yes,
We are in
Mataji.
this together.
Yeah, listening to this, I feel very bad. Hope Krishna will help you in finding a nice place again, Mataji.
Yeah, there is something I have to learn in all this. There is something, maybe there's some attachment that I need to let go of. Maybe I need to trust and surrender to Krishna more. All those things I was sitting in front of the deities today and thinking, okay, Krishna, what is it you want me to learn from this? And the thought came to me, you know what? At the time of death, nothing will matter except my consciousness. Really, my consciousness is what. So Krishna is making me practice to remember him more. Because when you're desperate, you call out to Krishna more, right? So you're getting trained for that final moment. Because you take more and more shelter of Krishna. What else to do?
Krishna's mercy.
Yeah.
Showing like this.
Everything is Krishna's mercy. Everything.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. So we pray that you continue your services even while you are traveling, and you will be available for all of us to give class again and again. Thank you so much,
By
Mataji.
Krishna's mercy, Guru Maharaj's mercy, and your
Yes,
mercy.
Mataji. I'm just an instrument.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
so
everyone, for participating in the discussion. Thank you all, everyone, for joining. Mataji, thank you so much for the wonderful class once again and nice discussion. We'll end the call here. Thank you. Vancha kalpatarushya kripa sindhubhyo patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
My humble obeisance.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Guru Maharaj ki jai. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very
Sadhu
much.
Sangha-
Hare Krishna.
Sadhu Sangha ki jai.
Jai.